The original Three Musketeers story by Alexandre Dumas was a classic piece of writing. Larger-than-life characters, big, bold plot. It's arguably the most popular story in French literature. Written back in 1844 as a serial, much as Sherlock Holmes would be in the Strand magazine some 50 years later, it was translated into English in 1846 and went on to become a Hollywood staple. The first film was made back in 1903, the latest just last year. There have been comedy versions, musical versions, and animated versions. Tom and Jerry, Mickey Mouse, and even Barbie have had a stab at it. And try as we might, how can we possibly forget D'Artagnan and the Three Musketeers, a joint Spanish-Japanese cartoon from the 1980s, but less well known as it was the first part of a trilogy. The second part, called 20 Years After, was published just a year after the first book. The third, the Vicomte de Bragelonne, 10 years after, was a huge book. 3 volumes, serialised over 3 years from 1847. And it's only really the last volume, The Man in the Iron Mask, that we still remember. And that, sadly, mainly from the film versions. Theatre Workshop Coulsdon picked up the Willis Hall adaptation of The Three Musketeers back in 1996, directed by a stalwart founder member, Chris Argos. Like most adaptations, it took a certain amount of artistic licence with the story. One of the key elements was the killing of Milady de Winter by the musketeer Athos, which doesn't occur in the book, but does provide for a much more dramatic confrontation. It was a popular success for TWC, playing to a number of our strengths, not least that of having a larger male contingent than many amateur groups, not forgetting that a number of those men really hadn't left their daring-do and swashbuckling heads behind along with their 20s. 15 years on, and we're looking for a big, colourful summer production. The Three Musketeers is discussed, but we don't really want to rehash the play again. Why not do a sequel then? Because they've not written a stage play sequel. I know, says I. I'll write one. The fact that I've never written a play before is obviously neither here nor there. One of the major factors in doing the play was the continuity. Back in 1996, Richard Lloyd played Athos, Mike Brown Porthos, and I was Aramis. We're all still here. Older, but possibly no wiser. So it made even more sense to keep those players in those roles and revisit the characters. Bruce Montgomery played Cardinal Richelieu in the original with an evil flair, and he was then a natural to play the even nastier Cardinal Mazarin. Of the leading parts, only D'Artagnan's been changed. Paul Breeden was unavailable, so Luke Arnold steps up from first jailer in the 96 play to Gascon Musketeer, but it's an indication of his abilities that even in that lowly role, he garnered a very positive review from the visiting critic. But if continuity was a strong driver, then so was making sure we could showcase our newer talent. We have a wealth of strong young actresses, so I had to write in female roles where none existed. With Milady dead, the book introduced the son Mordaunt as a new villain, but in the play, he becomes she. De Winter, Milady's daughter, damaged goods, just this side of being a psychopath, with a burning desire for vengeance at any cost. Indiana Scorsese, having been an excellent Miranda in last spring's The Tempest, brings her to vivid life. Her opposite is Henrietta Maria, daughter of King Charles I of England. A brave young woman, daring and intelligent, and Annie Destiny, one of our latest recruits, injects the role with just the right balance of determination and pathos. The plot loosely follows the book, as D'Artagnan gathers his old comrades together in order to rescue King Charles from his execution at the hands of Cromwell's parliamentarian forces. But if there are any Dumas purists out there, I'm sorry, prepare to be upset. Dumas was an avid historian and loved plundering France's past, but he twisted England's history to fit his own needs. If the book had followed history's timeline, then our heroes would have spent not weeks, but years in England. Not good when you want to wrap everything up inside about 2 hours and 1 evening. They make a number of attempts to free the king on his way to London. They all fail. But it suited a magazine's serialisation by having a constant supply of cliffhanger endings. And he had our gallant musketeers attempt to prevent the execution by kidnapping the executioner, as if, somehow, there was only one in the whole of England. So, no, our version is not faithful. It probably owes more to the film versions than the book on a number of levels, but it's about honour, and friendship, and yes, age, and it's about good versus evil, and it's about fun. Yes, there are some darker moments, and some hopefully sad, even moving moments, but they're all there to add counterpoint to the humour that runs throughout. And of course, the sword fighting. You can't have a Musketeers story without swordplay, and Mike Brown doubles as Porthos and our fight master, making sure that we present a series of deadly duels and bloody battles, all without anyone getting a scratch. So, come along to the Coulsdon Manor Hotel this summer and be plunged back to the time of the English Civil War. Life, love and liberty are all at stake, and it's down to three ageing heroes and a younger comrade in arms to save the day. All for one, and one for all, once more.